What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Friday Live with me, your incredible hostess with the mostess, Diana Gladney. Super pumped to be here and be doing our Friday Live. It has been quite some time since we have been able to do one of these. However, looks like we may be having to change from Friday to Monday, just where things are going. That's why we really haven't been having any. And I hop on when I can, but neither here nor there. We are here today. So whether you're watching this live or on the replay, thanks for being here. We are going to be discussing some of the new updates that have been recently coming out. There have been a ton of camera releases. I've gotten a ton of questions, of which I think everyone, for the most part, minus if you commented today or something like that, you may or may not have gotten a reply back yet. But to my understanding, and per my own personal record, I have replied to nearly all of those comments. And so I get a lot of questions about the cameras and stuff like that. What do I think about this one? What do I think about that one? Is this one good to buy? Is this one still recommended? And so on and so forth. And so we're going to be covering all the new releases, all the new updates and stuff like that. So I have a ton of the web pages pulled up, and if they all participate this evening, we'll get through them fairly quickly. And you guys can always feel free to ask away any questions or comments that you guys have. And also, I'm really excited because, as you guys know, I am an avid user of Ecamm Live, and I absolutely love it. So if I want to pull something up like this to represent the Video Simplified podcast, which if you haven't subscribed to, you should, I can pull stuff like that on the screen. I can kind of resize that if I want to, or move it around. So a lot of cool things. They have recently added on some other stuff as far as even being able to go as far as I'm recording this right now with a LUT. And so a live LUT, which has not been done on any other system that I know of, or any other live streaming platform for sure, especially at this price point, where you're able to adjust your temperatures and everything like that, even from the brightness and so forth. Let me get that back to where it should be, or adjust the temperatures. I'm not going to adjust the color because I've already done that, and I can see it's messing up with it a little bit, so we'll let it live. But a lot of great things. So I'm curious to try that out, test that out. But yeah, we're using a LUT, and hopefully this continues to go smoothly, because I can adjust stuff like, so this is my favorite thing right here. We can go into black and white. What? Live time, black and white? We might just do the whole daggone live stream like this. We won't, because I liked it where it was at. And so I think that's about where I had it. Yeah, that looks good. And if you notice behind us, I'm geeking out right now. You're welcome. Change in the colors of the light bulb. Merry Christmas, everyone. So I'll be playing with that periodically throughout the stream. At some point, I might do a giveaway. To be continued. Alrighty. So I'm not going to keep flicking. I actually just want to get back to the color that I had back there. And then we'll get over to the cameras. There we go. All right. So I'm such a child. All right. So we have a ton of cameras that have recently come out from, oh goodness, the Canon M6 Mark II, the G7X Mark III, the everybody's every camera everywhere. Cameras have been coming out like nobody's business. And the thing is that I absolutely love is the fact that there are a lot of great features happening here. However, there are some things to watch for, because I think there is some gotchas in some of this, and it's just kind of not worth it. So when it comes to the Canon M6 Mark II, is one that I know a lot of people have been really excited about, really wanting to see, what Canon does and all that great and, wonderful stuff. I just am not super excited about it, but I'll go into why. And if there was a camera that I would I guess, kind of push you towards if you have the M50 and you're wanting to kind of upgrade. Even the original M6, I've had that camera before. It does a pretty good job, and there's not a whole lot of difference. And the allure of 4K is catching a lot of people's attention. But it's not a whole lot difference between the original M6 and the M6 Mark II. But we're not going to do a deep dive into all of these cameras. We're just going to be going into the things that kind of matter the most with it, just to kind of give you a little bit of a buffer as to what's been going on. So if we look at the cameras, it looks almost the exact same, minus a few button switch arounds, and that's about it. This camera is actually really comfortable. The M6 was a pretty comfortable camera. Yes, your hand or whatever will kind of rub up against the little spinning wheel that they have on there, which I'm kind of glad didn't make it over to the M50. But other than that, I mean, it's an okay camera. I'm going to skip past all of the photo stuff because I'm primarily for video. And so this would be one of the cameras that was recently updated to include 4K, as well as right here, it doesn't have where it's listed yet because it came out via firmware update not that long ago. I think, let me check the date on this one. This is October 31st. So yeah, October 31st, right? Maybe barely a week or so ago, we were able to see that, a lot of cameras like the Canon RP, which is one of their full frame cameras that we'll get into, as well as the M6 Mark II, G7X Mark well, I don't know about the G7X Mark III. Hold that thought. But we at least know that the M6 Mark II is one of those. And it does have the flip up screen, which is fine. It's nothing wrong with that. The camera that you're looking at me on right now, which is the Sony a6400, that one has a flip up screen. It's fine. It's just different. That's literally it. Yeah, just like, oh, the hot shoe gets blocked. That's not anything new. That's been a thing for a long time. This is my biggest thing. This 30-minute recording limit that we've continued to see on cameras. Sony, Panasonic, and Panasonic are really the only ones that have decided to get rid of that. Because it was only with, it was only with a tax issue or levy issue or whatever it was. That was the reason why it was a 30-minute limit to begin with. Okay, that was finished, by the time the a6400 came out. So it really was no need for cameras to stop doing that. They were no longer going to be taxed the same way as if it was a camcorder or whatever, which is why they had to keep it under 30 minutes. And so that's gone away now. So unless there are some overheating issues or something like that with this camera for some reason, there's no real point for them to keep doing that. So you will still see the 30-minute recording limit on all Canon cameras unless you legit go and buy one of their camcorders. But, it's like it is what it is. Does the 4K on this get the 24 frames per second? I do not believe so. I think that the RP, which is what over here, if you go to canonrumors.com, which is pretty cool if you want to check out. I can either deal with whatever's on the side of here, so you have to excuse that bit. But at least for the Canon RP, they did do the 24p, and that's only in 1080p, so I doubt that the M6 Mark II would get that. I think the 90D got it in 4K. They got 24p in 4K, but it would only really be some of those higher end models. But again, all of them you still doing with a 30-minute recording limit. To those whom it matters, people will say like, oh, it's not 422 10-bit or whatever. This at least is 422 8-bit. So if that means anything to anybody, that's a thing. I highly doubt for you guys here that that's really a big thing. That's more getting into color science and dealing with if you're pushing the colors really, really hard. You're doing stuff, like I said, right now we're doing a live LUT. So this is the flat image coming out of the camera, and I'm color grading it using Ecamm Live. And so I'm just playing around with that. It's a new feature that we're testing currently. And so I'm trying that out. But other than that, that's pretty much it. You do not get a headphone jack on this one. The dual pixel autofocus, That's the thing. I stopped following Canon, honestly, once they just really started to run some of the video side of the cameras into the ground, because it wasn't like they said all of these are going to be, just video centric ones, and then these are our photo centric ones. They just are really not caring about the consumer that much, in my opinion. So as you guys know, I always like to be real and straight up, but Canon is just not caring about us right now. They don't love us. So whether or not the 4K has dual pixel autofocus, I don't recall, because a lot of what they have been doing is the contrast detection autofocus. So unless you're buying the Canon R, which could be over $2,000, depending on price now, and the lenses are really expensive. That's why I'd like, even with the RP that I have pulled up here, even with that one, it's still this new lens mount, this RF lens mount. So while the camera, is probably as much as like the Sony A6600 that recently came out. Oh no, it's less than that actually. We'll get into Sony's later, but best bang for buck, maybe if you can find one of these used. But as soon as you add on a lens, a moderately priced lens, like you're jumping into the stratosphere for prices, and it's like, honestly, I can't say that it's worth it. Don't get me wrong, these lenses, these RF lenses, are incredible. I mean, absolutely beautiful. But like, for what though? You know what I'm saying? Like, if $500 is a lot of money for you, spending $500 upwards to $1,000 or $1,200 on a lens is not going to be worth it for most people. So when you look at the M6, it's still going to fit the same mount as the M50. And so when you look at the Canon M50, you have this EOS M, and let me know if this is getting choppy, because I think I'm pushing the limits of my computer right now with all these internet windows I have up and live streaming and all the extra other stuff. So, but this is the regular EOS M mount that we all know and love, or EFM mount rather, that fits the M50. If you get an M6, the lenses that you have, like this is the kit lens, will still fit on there normally. And so even if you get a speed booster, and like my Yongnuo 35mm lens that I absolutely love, these paired up together, so you get this kind of a stuff, this will still work going on to the M6. So that's the only thing. Is there an upgrade path from the M50? If I had to put my money on one and say which one it was, I would say that the M6 would be kind of it, but it's like, for the money that you're going to spend, even if you trade in your camera, say you trade in the camera by the M50, is it really worth it? No, it's not. So Henry, welcome to the stream. You're saying it's a little choppy. Yeah, I'm seeing it on my end too. I only get this when I have a ton of stuff running on the computer, like having a bunch of internet windows open, and then the computer starts to freak out. So we will move on, start closing out some of this stuff a little bit there, give it some breathing space. But I think I'll be getting a new computer soon, so hopefully that'll stop after a while. But Henry, you're saying if you're not into 4K right now, the G7X Mark II or even the G7X, is that a good option? No. And here's my honest opinion why. I say no to those G7X Mark 1, 2, or 3 cameras, because even though a lot of people have them, a lot of people swear by them, they use what's called a contrast detection autofocus, which is not Canon's best autofocus. It sucks, to be completely point blank. And that's probably not great for brand deals, but like, to be completely honest, and that's my thing. If I'm going to throw an affiliate link down for something I'm recommending, it have to be something I would be willing to put my money down for. And as much as it is like easy to use for the Canon cameras, it is absolutely not worth it, because even though as cheap as they may be, it is still absolutely not worth it, because when you first are looking at a camera and you're starting to price it and you're starting to consider what it is and you're starting to like add up, like, okay, what's it going to be after taxes and all of that stuff that we go through when we're getting ready to put our money down on the camera. Before a year's time is out, you will be tired of that camera. You will get frustrated because it's not focusing well. And the things that you want to do or try to do, even if you're just doing 1080p, it's going to frustrate the heck out of you. And that's where it starts, like that's when you find yourself stuck in like this camera loop of always looking for a better buy, always looking for the next camera. And I heard this one is coming out. It's just not worth it. If you want a great point and shoot camera like that with the zoom, good autofocus and all of that stuff, a lot of people compare the G7X cameras, the Mark II or whatever, to the Sony cameras. And if you're going to go with the Sony point and shoot camera, I would say go with the RX100 Mark V and up. So the 5, the 6, or the 7. Reason why I wouldn't say any of the 1, 2, 3, or 4 RX100 whatevers is because they had the same problem. Focusing issues. It sucked and the colors looked terrible. Whereas the difference is now, if you get a used one, which is not anything wrong with it, every camera literally minus, I think, one, maybe, have been used, but they are been like pristine condition. And so for little to no difference, you can get a really amazing camera. So let's say you're considering one of these two options. The thing is that the G7X Mark III, Canon bought the internal sensor, like this part in the part of the camera. They bought that from Sony, and the one that they got is from the RX100 Mark IV. The RX100 Mark IV came out several years ago, and it sucked then, And so Sony has gone on to put the type of technology that's in their highest level camera into the RX100 Mark VII. And they did a pretty gosh darn good job with the 5 and the 6. That's honestly where I put, yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but you also get so much more for your money. If you want to live stream with those cameras, you can live stream with that camera the same way I'm doing it right now using the A6400. You can live stream with those Sony point and shoot cameras. You can't do that with the G7X Mark II. The Mark III you can, but the auto focusing sucks. I just was on a stream earlier today with live streaming pros earlier today, and the guy, what's his name? David and Luria Petrucci of Live Streaming Pros. You check them out. They were also saying how he tried it. It's terrible. And even he said that was with the updated fix for the focusing. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. So, and let me hurry up, get through these windows, and I can close the stuff down, and then the stream will stop chopping up because my computer just cannot handle it. So that's my opinion on that, though, Henry, and it's just being honest with you. So I was talking about the Canon RP. You tack on the lens, that now goes from a $1,000 camera to almost a $2,000 camera. And this is before, if you have to pay taxes or whatever else. And that's just when you add on what would be considered their kit lens for this camera. So you're going to spend almost $1,000 on a kit lens with them. And this L series lens, anytime you see that red band, that's one of their higher end cameras when it comes to Canon. Again, the lenses are amazing. The cameras aren't that great. They will eventually come out with something that will hopefully be good, but until then, there are no cheaper options. And yes, you can get adapters like we're doing with the M50 and stuff. It just isn't worth it. Seriously, if you buy it, you may be happy with it. Don't get me wrong. If you want to spend the money and that's the camera you know that you want, go for it. Screw what I'm talking about. It's like if that's what you know that you want, go for it, because that could literally, I just want to do 1080p. I want a really nice camera and I want a really nice lens and and I don't want to have to buy a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm tired of doing research. If that's what you want, get it. By all means, go for it. I just can't say, I'm not willing to put my stamp of endorsement behind it, because I know that I would not spend the money on it. And I am not saying that just looking at camera reviews. I have put the camera in my hand. I have tried it. they suck, in my opinion. You probably like it and they're cool or whatever, but it's just like meh, meh. And in the spirit of meh, Nikon released their Z50, very similar to an M50, except it flipping down, which we've seen on the Canon M5, which was a nice camera. It just flipped, the screen just flipped down. Some people really like this. And this is a lens that I have come to love. Nikon is a camera brand that I'm really shocked by, honestly, because they have that Z6 surprised the heck out of me. Like, seriously, like that. Again, I was just like, no, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Went and tried it in the store, and I'm like, wow, that is a camera that literally made me say, wow, it was that good. So when I say this lens, I don't mean this one in particular. I just mean this style. So when Henry was asking about, the point and shoot cameras, yeah, that's one of the things like that kind of gets annoying when you're not trying to buy a whole bunch of stuff. You want certain looks, which require certain lenses. And somebody emailed me asking about like why they couldn't get the M50 lens to zoom right, and they were thinking it worked like that. And so what happens is when you get this M50, it has this button here. Let me block my face. It has this button here that you gotta kind of push up, and then it just kind of does like that. And then when you're done using the lens, you gotta find the button again, and then you pack it back down. Now, this person thought that it did all of that automatically, or there is some zoom switch. That does not exist, and Canon does not own or make any lenses that I know of for real. I think it may be one that was like a really old one that does that. Modern wise, they don't make lenses like that. But, and I didn't know it at the time, but this is the kit lens for the Sony a6400. I love this lens because it does just what we're seeing on the Z50. I wish Canon had did that because it's cool. It is the same feature of a point and shoot camera in a kit lens, and still cheap like a kit lens is. You can even find these for like $75. But you have like a little zoom switch on there. And furthermore, it like when you're zooming, you can see the actual numbers on the screen. It'll like, okay, 22 millimeters or 32 or exact numbers. So you know, like, okay, I want to test a 35 millimeter lens, prime lens, that's like $400, and compare it to what you would see on a kit lens. Let's say that's a video. I can put it exactly at 35, not guessing at about 35. Maybe not a big deal to you, but if you know you want to try something out or experiment with it, that's an option. And it's helpful, and it's freaking fun to like zoom in like you would, like if you see something and you can just zoom in. It's the silliest thing, but you don't have to like change anything. You just hit the switch and it power zooms in and zooms out. So I think for kit lenses, especially like for beginners, if you're trying to get into vlogging, if you're trying to get into all that kind of stuff, I wish Canon had did that on the M50. It's not a bad thing that they didn't. It's just like, it's cool when you see it. And I didn't know that that's what was on the Sony for real. I just figured maybe it popped out and then like you still manually have to do it, but because that's usually how kit lenses are. But now we see that Nikon actually did something really cool, and I'm curious to really see how this is. And I was just talking to a friend about renting some of these cameras, getting them in the office, testing them out, doing some videos on them so that we can kind of compare them. You guys can get your questions answered, and then we can do a live stream with them and stuff like that moving forward. So I do have a couple that I'm preparing to rent, and so we'll go through it. I don't know about this one yet, but it'll be pretty cool. Anyway, this one flips down, a power zoom lens, again, which is really fun, and Nikons feel amazing in the hand. You do get a microphone jack on here, so if you wanted to, I guess, kind of do the whole vlogging thing or just whatever, just to record, it would work. Similar type buttons setup as you would see on the M50. Very simple, nice screen, Surprisingly, like, I don't have a whole lot of a negative to say about Nikon anymore, since I have really, really tried it, and it just, like, I'm shocked with how good they are, honestly. So, it's just like, it's kind of at the point now where you want to consider, is Canon even worth the brand still playing around with? You know what I'm saying? Like, is it still worth the money? And that's a video that I wanted to record this afternoon, but the day just got by me, so I'll try to record that tomorrow morning. But it's just like, I've had a lot of people from the channel. You guys have reached out to me on Instagram. You guys have reached out to me in my email, and you're like, it's been a ridiculous amount of people like, okay, I'm ready to leave Canon now. So what's a better brand? And or a lot of people are looking like, hey, I've been looking at the Sony too. And so we'll look at those in just a second. But here's something else. On the Canon, it's a 1.6 crop factor, whereas that's just a general crop of a regular camera. It's 1.5x, which is what is on the Sony. Wouldn't seem like it makes a difference, but when you don't have like the additional crop in 4K, and the additional crop in this setting, and an additional crop in that setting, it does make a difference. So every little bit that you can get is nice. So Sony has a 1.5x. I think Nikon has it, and then it's another one. Fuji, I think, does a 1.5. And so cc.cctv, what is up? Good to see you. Glad that you are here. Said, I hate flip down screens. I am with you, sister. I do not. And your hair looks cute on that. That's a cute profile picture. So I hate the flip down screens too, because it's just awkward. If I'm doing this live stream with that camera, it sucks, because then I wouldn't be able to see myself. So I guess if you're hand holding it is the only thing that it's good for, but I don't know. If you're going to make it flip down, I guess make a hinge, another hinge that makes it flip back up or something. I don't know. We need more hinges on these cameras. Like, do something else. All right, let's go down to the video side of things. So you do get 4K, 24 frames per second, 30 frames per second, 1080p at 24 and 60 and 120. So they give you all of the basics. External recording modes is usually like when you hook up a monitor or what have you. And then they still do have a 30-minute recording limit, which is okay and expected on some of these more budget-friendly cameras. I just wish that everybody went to unlimited recording. You do get a built-in microphone jack, so that's always cool. And phase detection autofocus, which means that they do not have... Now, let me clarify. It says continuous servo AF, which is autofocus, and anytime if you do see contrast detection and phase detection in there, that's just saying that they use both. For example, Sony uses both, which is how they're able to get so much better autofocus, using them both in the right perspectives. Problem with Panasonic is they use it like 24/7. They don't have phase detection in there anyway. Canon is just saying screw you to us, and just only doing contrast and stuff like the G7X Mark II, 1, 2, or 3 cameras. Which sucks. So it's only so much improving that you can do to it. And so they have phase detection in this camera, which is fine. So moving on. Let's go back to Canon, which I try not to bash them, but hell, they deserve it. Like, you want us to drop this money, fam, you better bring it. So 90D. Here's my thoughts on DSLRs, because I have had people ask me, okay, 90D is out. It's got a headphone jack. It's got, the Canon colors. It's got you get the Canon lenses. You can get all whatever else. What about the 90D? And to that I say, what about it? It's a DSLR. Not that it's not anything really wrong with it. My channel focuses on video. I'm sharing my journey in my business. I'm helping you to share your vision using video to help you in your business. I talk about cameras like we're doing tonight, and it's a lot of fun. However, when you're doing audio, if we went from audio that is on the computer to this microphone, it's going to sound really, really different. It's going to sound terrible. So if you wouldn't like that sound, and you say, well, what would it sound like? Well, it sounds like this. This is the built-in microphone coming from the laptop. Sounds very different now. Whereas if I switch over, this is now coming from the microphone on my thing right here. It's coming from this microphone. The difference between it being, imagine trying to fight the noises and the stuff that you just heard in the built-in audio, the computer fan, background noise, whatever, you know what I'm saying, just room noise in general, that sucks. So when you have a DSLR and you plug in a microphone, you get hiss. It doesn't sound all that great. And while you may not notice it completely when you're first, getting in video and all of that stuff, it makes a difference. Even if you just bought, like, my first mirrorless camera, which was the Canon M3, the audio preamps on the internal audio in there sounds far better than a DSLR. So at that point, it's like, do people use them? Sure. Have people bought them before? Absolutely. Are people going to buy this camera? Absolutely. But is it, like, great? It'll be all right. You're just going to have to finagle it some, but it's like, that's something like for the money that you're going to spend on some of this stuff. It's just like, or considering to spend, are these really nice cameras? Sure. Do they do a great job? Sure. It's pretty much the same as the M6 Mark II minus a few things. They do crop in a whole bunch when you're doing 4K. And something interesting they did with the 90D, they have a cropped in 4K that looks kind of good. And then, real quick, C.C. Oh, I said CC, my bad. C.C TV. Thank you. You're very welcome. So, but when it comes to like the 90D, something interesting that they did was that there's a crop mode on the camera to where it'll punch in a lot and then it will be better quality, I think. But then if you do the uncropped 4K, which is just like, you don't want it zooming in and punching in on the image, then it will do it, but then there's like, it could overheat, so it's giving you an overheating warning. It really sucks. No. I'm sorry, but no. On to the Sony. So this is Sony's newest release, the Sony A6100. They came out with the 6100 and the 6600. How are these much different than what I'm using right now? And people ask me, well, what do you think since these came out? This one is okay. Not really worth it, because for this price or cheaper even use, you can get an A6400 and have profile pictures or picture profile styles on there where you can get color grading. You may say, well, I'm not into color grading. Yeah, you say that now, but it never fails. People come back in like 6 months or whatever, or I'll get editing clients and they say, I want my stuff to look like this. And it's just like, okay, that's color graded. And to do that, it has to be recorded in a certain way. Are you willing to learn that? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And then like, okay, what camera do you have? And then it may be something like a Canon T5i or Canon something, whatever. And it's just like, okay, that really is not built for that. It's like, it'll take some finagling. And it's only so far that you can push it before the image starts to really fall apart. And it looks really, really bad. So that one doesn't have the picture profiles in there, and it has a 30-minute recording limit. Whereas with the A6400 that I have, you can find these really cheap now. Again, this is B&H. B&H can be a little bit higher. If you check out the used, it may be a little bit cheaper or what have you. But like I got mine for $700 something used, and it was practically brand new. Like, just, I don't even know what the person did with it. They probably had it on a tripod the whole time. But this one has the picture profiles in there. Again, even if you don't do the color grading, let's say you hire somebody to do the stuff for you, or you hire somebody to do a LUT, or somebody whose channel that you watch, they come out with a LUT and you say, I want my stuff to look like this or whatever, and you want to try to start playing around with that stuff, which it never fails. People want to all the time. Or just say, you know what I'm saying, at least give it a shot. You at least have the capabilities to do that with this camera. No, it doesn't have the built-in in-body image stabilization like the A6600 or the headphone jack like this other one does. That is the other one that not Canon, but Sony came out with. Little pricey. I'm so thinking about adding this one as a second camera because I need to replace my M50. Not to replace the M50, but just to have my second camera, which I'm doing video work, so it makes sense. I'm justifying it, okay? It makes sense. But, I mean, just my gosh, it's amazing. It really, really is. So you do get the built-in in-body image stabilization. You do get a headphone jack. You get all these amazing and wonderful things. Yet, it's, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. So, enough with all of this stuff. All this camera jargon. So, we spent a good amount of time going through and talking about the different cameras and camera brands that are out there. We spend a nice chunk of time talking about this model or that model. And that jargon can be a little harsh to keep up with if you're new to all of that. So here's my recommendations in general when you're talking about, should I buy this camera or that camera? Should I get this thing or that thing? Should I, you know what I'm saying, all this stuff. When you're considering to buy a camera and you're trying to decide what camera it is that you want, a lot of times people will cut off, you know, the things, or they'll shortchange the features or whatever that's really important to them that you really don't want to do that. It's going to hurt you in the long run. And in the long run, in the camera world, it's like 6 months barely, because there's always something new coming out. And when you're looking at a camera, you want to be able to say and really be honest with yourself. Am I going to use this feature or not? Because there are some things that people that are like really into cameras and stuff like I am or what have you, we're looking at and we're considering and we're saying yes or no, or we're giving our recommendations saying, yes, I do think that would be a great fit for this type of person, or I don't think that would be a great fit or what have you. At the end of the day, you have to know what you're going to use, or what's most important to you and what you're doing. If you're just trying to live stream, if you're just trying to do whatever, hands down, I still recommend, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, the Canon M50 is going to be a great buy, especially if you're using a software like Ecamm Live or something like that. You watch any of the other videos out there on this camera to learn how to use it and stretch it a little bit. You're going to get amazing quality and great features out of it. If you're at any point knowing that, like I said, color grading is going to be important to you, or you don't want to finagle with the camera, you just want it to work and live stream, clean HD, HDMI out, and not have any problems, you want that. You don't want to have to play around with it. Go ahead and invest in the camera that's going to mean the most to you. One of the biggest mistakes I think people make is shortchanging their wants and their needs for what they're wanting in a camera, and getting that next level lower or 1 or 2 levels lower, because it don't take long. You'll continue to watch the YouTube videos. You'll continue to, look at research. You'll continue to look at whatever, and it just will not do it for you. You'll get dissatisfied very quickly, and it's not too much longer before every 8 to 12 months, something new will be coming out. So I really find that that's a mistake that a lot of people make when they are deciding to invest in a camera. They don't get what they actually want. That's why I said, to some extent, if you want a certain camera, whether I endorsed it or not, or your favorite person, that's reviewing content or cameras and gear endorses it or not, and that that's something that you want, get it because you want it, not because we recommend it or not, because you very well could get something that's too high up and that's like more of a headache than what it's worth, and it gets to be more frustrating, and it completely kills that creative process for you. So you wind up not creating anything at all, and that's absolutely worse than buying, quote unquote, the wrong camera. And so Paper Rain said, what Canon are you recommending? Right now, I would say my list of Canon cameras that I would recommend is the Canon M50. I think this is a great beginner camera, especially if you buy one used. You do get the dual pixel autofocus, which is amazing. You do get flip out screen, even if you wanted to do it for Instagram or whatever, that works. I almost dropped it. And it's a good buy if you want the Canon M6 or the Canon M6 Mark II. Those are going to be probably the extent of what I honestly would recommend. You got cameras like the Canon R or the RP that are out there. Again, if you want it, if you're willing to spend that much money on a camera, maybe you're only getting that 24 to 105 or 24 millimeters to 105 millimeter lens. The L series lens is $1,000 for that lens. I mean, you do what you got to do. But that's my extent for what I honestly would recommend. But like I said, if you know that there is a camera that you're eyeing, and you can feel free to drop whatever models or whatever, because we're actually about to wrap up here. But if you feel like there is something that you want more than an M50 or more than a whatever, go for it. Because the worst thing that you do, like I said, is buy a camera that is a little bit cheaper, but it's not quite there. Or it's like, oh, well, it kind of does that. Or, you know, it's like the one thing is like, you got to know when somebody is like finessing a camera. You know, it's just like, oh, well, it kind of works, or it didn't quite do it. No, do it work or don't it? You know, it's like really, really get a chance to try it. And you got 30 days when you buy something anyway. For real, try it out and see if it works. If not, return it and get something better. So, Paper Rain, you're asking about the Canon T7i. So, the T7i came out at about the same time of the M6, original M6. Yeah, because it was 7070D, T7i, and that Canon M6. If you're using it for video, again, it's like maybe consider the M6, the original M6, not the Mark II, but just the M6. They're both still 1080p cameras. The M6 is smaller. Yes, the screen does flip up instead of out to the side like I just showed on the M50. Or get an M50. Reason being is because they're smaller, more lightweight. But the biggest thing, honestly, is going to be the internal preamps or the audio inside of the camera. On any DSLR, I don't care what brand it is, it's going to sound terrible. It's going to be a kind of a hiss noise in the audio. And you're going to be thinking it's the microphones. And, oh, I got to move from where it's at. And maybe it's picking up interference. It's not. All DSLRs, especially Canons, sound terrible, including the T7i. The focus is great. Yeah, there's a bunch of Canon lenses out there, but you can adapt those like I've done with the M50 or whatever. It's not that big of a deal. You can even get a speed booster that has that glass element in there and get a whole lot more bang for your buck if that's the case. But there's nothing wrong if you have or want to get that camera, you see a good deal on it. Just know that the audio is probably going to suck a little bit, and you just want to watch for that. Said, I use Ecamm Live for art videos, and I currently use a Nikon, but Ecamm works better with a Canon. So I'm using Ecamm Live right now. I absolutely love it. I think that is it talking head style video like this, or is it just like a point down shot where you're just kind of showing what you're doing or following along? Because if that's the case, it may be fine for that. I'm just saying, like, it gets annoying audibly after a while when the audio is just really horrible. People have done really well, far better, than I with terrible audio. But I'm just saying, like, if you know that kind of stuff may annoy the crap out of you, or if you may get tired of people complaining in the comments or something like that, if you get that or whatever, it's just something to consider. As far as Ecamm working well with a Canon, I love how they work well with. You literally just take a USB cable, plug it into the camera, like from an Android phone or whatever. Not USB-C, not the circular or oval ones. It's kind of like the old school ones, the old school Android phones. Those cables, you just plug that in, and that's literally all you need. No Elgato Cam Link. You get the autofocusing features, and so it would be great for that if that's what you wanted. And you said you're working with both. You're doing 2 angles. So there is a video on the channel when I had 2 N50s. I wound up selling one before I got the A6400. And so you can do that, and it will work, whether you're using a Nikon or whatever. But will it work better with a Canon, or maybe be easier? I think is the thing. Yeah, because then you just need 2 USB cables, and then you can switch the angles. For example, this is like a 2-angle shot. So I'm using, like I said, I'm using Ecamm Live. The one that you see on the left is, well, it's my left. I don't know. It could be your right. But the one you see on my left is the Sony, the better looking one, obviously. And then the other one is just the web camera. So even if you wanted to do a dual screen something, let's say show the desk and still show you, you could do it this way, or you could do a different way, or just like flop from one scene to the other, from one camera angle to the other. So maybe this one, instead of it being the web camera, let's say it's pointing down at the desk and I'm showing you how to do whatever the art project is. And then I switch back to myself. You'll have those same capabilities with 2 cameras. Even if you just used a web camera or something, you don't necessarily need a whole nother DSLR or something. You can use a web camera. You can connect your phone because you have Ecamm Live. You could also connect, like I said, your phone, if you have an iPhone, that is, and bring that screen up and show that and stuff like that. So there are a lot of options that you could do with Ecamm Live and still get that same high level production level that you want, whether you're live streaming or if you're just recording a video. A lot of times, anytime you see me at my desk, any kind of videos like this on the channel, I'm using Ecamm Live. A lot of times it's been with the M50, more recently with the Sony, but about 99% still of those videos are with the Canon M50. So like I said, you can do a 2-angle shot super easy. Like I said, you can bring somebody else in the room or whatever, or you and your desk, and have a dual side like this, or swap from one screen to the other, and it will look really good. So it's just preference at that point. So hopefully that's helpful. He said, awesome, this is so helpful. Well, I'm glad that it is. Alrighty. So I think we want to wrap up there. I've gone through all the camera models. Last things that usually, we were doing a regular Friday live, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time live stream. So whether it's stuff like this or answering questions or going through a training or whatever the case is, every Friday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, we were doing the Friday lives. That's probably going to change to a Monday live. Still 8 p.m., but it's just like with my current work schedule, with what I'm doing for client work, traveling, videography work, and stuff like that. Fridays and the weekends are just not great days because those tend to be super project heavy, or I'm recording for events and doing editing projects and stuff like that. And I know I have a lot of traveling coming up, so I want to get back to the regular live streams, but Fridays are not going to be the best for us anymore. So it'll probably be between like a Friday and a Monday, but we shall see. But the goal here always is help you move your vision forward using video. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call it good right there. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's stream, and as always, live with passion, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.